Welcome and happy Friday, wherever you are in this big old world of ours. It's time for 3 questions to better business. You're going to like today's guest. Not that you haven't liked previous week's guests, they're all wonderful, but you're especially going to like today's guest. This young man has been a mentor of mine for several years. We met through Stage Time University, and I don't know how else to put this. He's a clown. I mean, no, really, he went to clown college. His roots are in clowndom. And he took that experience. He has been a comedian. He's an improv specialist. We host twice a month an improv class. And he was a longtime Las Vegas performer. He performed in a show called Defending the Caveman. Please help me welcome Mr. Kevin Burke.
Howdy, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. Cold. I'm sick of the cold, but it is what it is. It's what happens when you live in the Midwest.
Las Vegas awaits, sir.
I know it does, and I'm thinking more and more about it. So now I've given a quick background on you, but what's going on in your life now? You also work with business professionals on their presentations, and you are a master at helping people pull out the best possible delivery, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I am a retired Las Vegas headliner. I managed to retire right before anybody had even heard of the pandemic, so my timing was impeccable.
Absolutely.
And now I play a lot of golf, and I coach a select clientele of business business speakles. Yes.
Yes.
And when I'm done with them, they are each and every one certified professional business speakles.
And anybody can be a speaker. A speaker, a whole new level of presentation.
You have to put the work in to be a speaker, my friend.
You do. We're going to talk about work in a little bit, but I thought we could start with the question. What is the biggest challenge or problem that you see with business presentation delivery today?
The biggest problem I see is that many people seem to think that there is a style that says, I am a professional speaker. And you've all seen that person, that one speaker who goes, so I'm going to be giving you some important pieces of information today. On the one hand, there's this, this, and this. On the other hand, there's this, this, and this. My quest is to beat the speaker out of people.
Yes, and I've seen you do it live, and you do a very nice job of it, by the way.
Thank you very much. It's, people need to just talk. Just talk to me. Just talk to me like I'm a regular human being, and I will give you the same courtesy.
So when we talk about beating the speaker out of people, what exactly does that entail? I mean, I know my experience was my first 7 years of speaking. I joined Toastmasters because I was threatened with losing my job. My presentation sucked.
Wow.
I mean, it really did. My boss told me to know uncertain word. That's why I joined. But for 7 years, I was very insecure. I thought my hair had to be perfect, suit had to look great, shoes polished, all that, and memorize every single word perfectly. So when we say beat that out of them, what does that entail?
It means getting rid of all of the artificiality, all of the things that all of the crap that people have loaded onto them that they are told makes them effective speakers. The most effective speaker in the world is not the one who says, you know what I'm going to do for you? I am going to create a lifestyle where you can afford to stay home 24 hours a day and just do whatever you want. The most effective speaker in the world is the one who says, I love you and I want to marry you.
Wow. Okay, Kevin.
And both of those were the exact same pitch, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah. But the feeling behind it. One of the questions we consistently ask in the coaching group you and I are part of is, do you speak that way in real life?
Exactly.
It's exactly. And it is a tough question to ask yourself. When you watch yourself on video and listen, you have to ask, So I know I really talk to my kid, my dog, my partner, and a lot of times we don't like the answer.
Right?
And
Did you do this on the carpet? Was that you that went poo-poo on the carpet?
well, I've got a program that'll help you stop doing that in just 3 weeks. Fido.
Opt in for $10,000.
That's right. Well, one of the tools that you and I have been helping people with the last 2 years, Kevin, is improv.
Mhm.
Give us some thoughts on why improv is. First of all, what is the misconception about improv, and how can it help us with business delivery?
Most people think of improv, they think of the TV show Whose Line Is It Anyway? The
Yes.
Drew Carey show. That is a very valuable and fun expression of improvisation, but improvisation is not about going for jokes. And if you take an improv class anywhere, and from the very beginning, if they have you reaching for jokes and trying to be funny, run as fast as you can, because that's not what improvisation is about. What improvisation is about is honest, open, spontaneous communication between two real human beings. The kind of things that we do every day. When you go to Starbucks and order your mocha frappuccini latte grande vent, you are having an improvised conversation because you know what the goal is. The goal is to buy and pay for your coffee and to receive your coffee. That's the goal. So, but you don't know 100% how that conversation is going to go. You know, the barista may throw you some information you didn't expect, like we're out of Peruvian goat cream. Would you like a substitute? You don't know 100%. So that's improvisation. Your entire daily life is an improvisation. So what we try to do is get everybody back to that simple state of creativity that we all exist within every day. But once we find ourselves in any kind of formal situation where we have to speak, all of that goes away. And we're back to these stiff, rigid people that, society has groomed us to be. So improvisation is about getting back to a creative state of childlike play, where your imagination can take over and spontaneity can take over, as opposed to rigid, structured communication.
And that's necessary in business, even during a presentation, because we don't know what that unexpected question will be, who it will come from, what tone it will be delivered in.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be ready for that. It's interesting. I was talking with a woman this morning about my work with improv and what you and I are doing a couple times a month. And I had this realization today, Kevin, and that is I've gotten more bold in the types of questions I'm willing to ask potential clients in a sales situation or even coaching. And I attribute a lot of that to improv, because there's a lot of confidence you gain through working with improv, and it helps your presentations, your ability to handle those tough questions.
So like, what would be an example? Sorry. You have to understand, it's 1 p.m. here. That's the crack of dawn for show business people.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got you up early.
Yeah. What would be an example of a bold question? If I was a potential client, what would a bold example question be?
Kevin, you just told me you don't know if you're ready to invest this kind of money for this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Earlier, though, you told me, correct me if I'm wrong, I might have misheard you. You said that doubling the number of clients coming through your door is paramount, and you see the value of what we've been talking about. So I'm confused. Can you help me understand something's not connecting there for me?
Well, it's clear to me that what you offer is very valuable. However, that is a huge investment, Mike. And this is something that I definitely have to run past my wife before I can make this kind of expenditure.
So let's stop there. Do you see what in the past I would have just backed off and said, well, let's put this off. But now I'm willing to share my confusion, because I am confused by the answer. Because a lot of times when we're in business situation, people give us conflicting answers all the time and we don't call them on it. So just, okay, well, go ahead and talk to your wife and wait. And then most of the time we never get the sale because we let them control the conversation. That being willing to do that now and really stand my ground and ask the questions has been very helpful. And I attribute that to improv.
Improv strengthens you. It helps you deal with any situation that may befall you. You may be giving a presentation in your office, and whatever PowerPoint deck you had planned, that computer completely shuts down. And now you have to give the entire presentation without any visual aids at all. Well, somebody who is strong in their improv skills can do that. We just, we acknowledge what's going on. We acknowledge the reality of the world around us in the moment, and we go with it rather than, spending 20 minutes having IT come in and try to figure out how to get your computer up and running. We just keep going.
Yeah. And in a business setting, to kind of wrap up this first question, the biggest challenge is we are too memorized. We don't practice enough so that when people throw us or the technology throws us off, we're done. Mm-hmm. Which leads me to the second question. This is a rule that you introduced me to several years ago, and it has never failed me. It is called the 100 rule. What is the 100 rule, and why should we be practicing and using that rule in our presentations?
If you have a presentation that you have to give that you actually care about, and there are many that we don't care about, you may have to deliver 5 minutes in a meeting on COVID protocols. And what's important is to just get the list of information out. Here's what the CDC recommends. Here's what state and county recommend. Here's what we're going to do. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, that's one thing. But if you have a presentation that you actually care about deeply, and of course you would care about COVID protocols, I'm not saying that you wouldn't, but if you have something that you care about that's of a deep personal connection to you, what I demand that you do is give that speech in a vacuum to no one at least 100 times before you step in front of an office full of people, or a convention room full of people, or a stage, an auditorium full of people. I need you to practice it at least 100 times. And yes, if you're giving a 5-minute speech, that means 500 minutes of speaking these words aloud. And why? Because unless those words are in your bones, and you don't want to be thinking ahead. The last thing I want is for you to have to be thinking ahead. All right, what's that next bit I'm supposed to talk about? I don't even want you to be thinking about the next word. I want the next word to come to your lips unbidden at the exact moment when you need it. And the only way that you can achieve that level of confidence and surety with a speech is to practice it 100 times. How many times is that, Kevin? 100 times. And I'll give you an example.
0.
I had an 80-page monologue that I had to memorize for the script. It's the script of Defending the Caveman. Mm-hmm. The runtime was an hour and 51 minutes. I'm going to say that again. The runtime of the show was an hour and 51 minutes. I spoke those words, all of them in order, more than 100 times before we even started the rehearsal process, so that the words were in my bones and the script was a living, breathing part of me. So I could wake up from a sound sleep and immediately start delivering that play in a way that was at least somewhat meaningful.
Yeah, and obviously that was going to be your livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
I have people who say, and I'm going to go back to where I wouldn't challenge people before. Some people will say to me, do I have to do it 100 times? My answer is, how important is it to you that this presentation work for you?
Yeah, you only have to do it 100 times if you give a crap about it.
And this might be high stakes, and it may be a sales talk that you're going to do for your career. If you can't do it 100 times, I don't think you're serious about your sales career. If this is a presentation for a CEO, she's going to do one time, what are the stakes? Always ask, what are the stakes at the end of this speech?
Mm-hmm.
And
Is it a retirement lunch where a CEO is speaking about a 40-year employee of the company who is retiring? Or is this the annual address to the shareholders? Guess what? They are both equally important. All right. The address to the shareholders is important to the shareholders and to Wall Street. That little speech that you give to the 40-year retiree is important to them because they've invested 40 years of their life with this company. They're both equally important and both equally deserving of adequate preparation. Notice I say adequate preparation. 100 times is adequate.
yeah, I've read a few years ago, and this was for some of the Hall of Fame speakers. They routinely did it 200 times before they'd go before a paid audience. They'd go out and they'd give it to audiences who were not writing a check, but it was a way for them to internalize it. Now, there are situations where people will hire me short term and they will say, I can't get to 100 in the next 3 weeks. Well, give it as many times as close to 100 as you can. And again, we're not criticizing anybody who doesn't do it 100. We're just saying if you want the full impact of the speech to where it is what we opened up talking about, it's natural, you're in the moment, you can handle anything. 100 times is the minimum. I'm working on a story right now, Kevin. I haven't shared it with you yet. And I'm actually using it in Toastmasters competition just to get the experience. I just practiced. I just did it my 26th time today, and I'm still stumbling, but I know now where the stumble points are. Took me that long to figure out, okay, this is where I need to work it because I want this to be in a keynote that I'm working on. So again, it's a magic number. And when I say magic, all of a sudden, when you get around 100, you don't think about it.
Yeah, no, it'll just come flowing right out of you. I have a big presentation that I have to give middle of March, and I am, in the process of finishing the writing of the presentation, and then begins the rehearsal. And I guarantee you, I will do it 100 times before I step in front of an audience.
Yeah,
and I'm only going to give it once.
Yeah, and one of our frequent viewers, Mitra, says she feels 100 is unreasonable, and that's fair. She also says this assumes we're all the same if each person needs 100 times. Talk about that for a minute, Kevin.
Sure.
We're all built
the process,
differently.
You shortcut the results. Period.
Yeah, there's something about that number that just works, and I haven't seen. And I agree with what you're writing, Mitra, that we're all a little bit different. We have different learning styles and personalities, but there's something about that number that has worked. I haven't not seen it not work for somebody, but give it as much as you can until the date of your presentation.
Now, see, Michael, I'm going to be honest with you there. I kind of think you're giving people an out. I think you're giving people a way to go, well, I did it 22 times. That's enough. You know what? This is for memorization. So if you give it 22 times and then you stop and you do it one more time as fast as you possibly can. And what I mean by as fast as you possibly can is, let's say I'm playing Richard III, Shakespeare's Richard III. It opens with, now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this son of York, etc., etc. So if you do it 22 times and then do it super fast, now's the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the son of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our provous at arms hung up for monuments deep. So if you can do it that fast all the way through and not go, then yeah, maybe you got it. But if you go through it and there are places where you hesitate even slightly, no, you don't have it. You need to do it 100 times.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the fast practice. That is, and you taught me that. That is my guide. Am I there yet or not? As fast as I can. And if I have 1, 2, 3 stumble points, I'm not there yet.
No,
if
you have 2 or 3 stumble points, go back to work.
Yeah,
go back to work and put in the work. Before a Major League Baseball pitcher steps up on the mound and throws his first pitch to his first batter, he has thrown 100,000 pitches in practice over the course of getting ready for this moment.
Yeah.
Why does your audience deserve any less?
Absolutely. I agree 100% with you. And I work with professional speakers, and I know that we hold them to a high standard when we do that. I also believe, I've shared this with a few people, I believe the stumble point, if you keep stumbling at the same place every time, I think that's your subconscious saying, you don't say those words. That's not how you speak. Change them up. And that's okay. Obviously, if you're doing a play, you got to do somebody else's words. You've got to memorize those. But if it's your own presentation, that's a message to you that you might want to change this up a little bit because you keep getting stuck at this part.
And, it's joyous work. It's fun. Yes, it's repetitive and pardon me, yes, it can be a bit of a grind, but it's joyous work. Think of all the basketball players who you've heard of, who before each game they get there early and they shoot 100 free throws just to dial it in and just to get themselves in the groove. It's the exact same thing with giving a speech.
Yeah, absolutely. And one way to keep it fresh for you, I love to practice using different accents. Right?
Yeah, and you can find out a lot about, you can find new information about your presentation if you deliver it in the manner of your weird uncle, or if you deliver it in the manner of Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek, or in the manner of Adam Sandler. You can find a lot of different things and a lot of nuances in there that you may not have discovered otherwise. And they may well be things that you can adopt and incorporate into your presentation.
Yeah,
Plus, it's fun.
Yeah.
If you got to do something 100 times, you might as well make it fun and interesting for yourself.
You and I have some common roots in Indiana. And I sometimes when I practice, I'll go down to that I heard growing up. And I've changed my script based on words that have come out of my mouth that are more like how I would speak. So, yeah, test it. Have fun with the rehearsal. If you, when I mentioned my first 7 years, I was rehearsing the exact same way every time, memorization, and I hated it. And it showed. And then I learned from you and a couple other folks that no, that's not how you do it. You internalize.
Yeah,
Let some new words flow out of you.
I'm from Indiana, up in the northwest corner in the Chicagoland area, and occasionally, especially when I'm tired, you'll hear it come out in my speech. But when I'm rehearsing something, very often I'll just put it into an extreme Chicago accent just to hear what that sounds like, And I'll throw in phrases that aren't in the script or aren't appropriate. But if I have a sense, well, I arrived at the venue this morning. Okay, I might change that to be, I drove up today in my Trans Am. Just for fun, just to shake it up just a little bit.
Yeah, and if you say the phrase or the word Trans Am in a Chicago accent, you might change the type of car you're talking about just to add some humor to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can make all kinds of discoveries this way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, third question. We've been giving several tips here, but what is one of your top tips you give somebody for business presentations, other than the ones that we have mentioned already?
Wow. I have to bring it down to one, and that is be hyper prepared. Be more prepared than you think you need to be. Be more prepared than you think anybody else would think you need to be. Because only by being thoroughly prepared can you handle the unexpected. There may be somebody who pops up with a question right in the middle of your presentation. Yeah, but okay, that's great, but what about? And you need to be able to respond to that, incorporate it into your presentation, and then resume right at the point where you left off seamlessly, without it making seem like, well, wait, what? You're heckling me? Only through thorough preparation can you handle anything. The lights go out. All right, you grab your phone, put the flashlight on, you stick it up under your chin. The power fails. You raise your voice and keep going. Preparation, preparation, preparation.
So what you're saying is this phrase should never escape your lips. Where was I?
No. Yeah, it's exactly right. That is exactly right.
You should
because
never
if you
say that.
don't know where you are, you're showing us that you don't care where you were. And if you don't care where you were, why should we care?
Yeah, and it sends such a subtle message to the audience. Sometimes a loud message to the audience. You didn't care enough to be prepared. All right, I'm gonna like a bonus question here. Biggest difference between virtual and online and in person, because I've been noticing the last couple of months these hybrid meetings. People are struggling with hybrid, and it's a permanent part of our situation now. We can't get around hybrid. What's a tip for people to become better hybrid?
Well, it's lovely to be able to have your entire audience right there in the room with you. You know, you can see their body language, you can observe their behaviors, you can see how this material is affecting them or not affecting them at all, and you can alter your presentation accordingly. Online, there's a couple of things. Make sure that you're well and adequately lit. Okay, my face is well lit. You can see me. You know, if I take off my glasses, you can see my eyes. Everything is well lit. The background is pretty neutral. I wore something that would pop off the background. So if you use a pastel background or a lighter neutral background like Michael has, put on a dark jacket or a dark shirt. Make sure that you stand out from your background. If either Michael or myself had a gray shirt on right now, we would look like just floating heads floating through the scene. And that's fine if that's what you want.
I learned that one night on a stage time call. I was in a rush. I wasn't paying attention. I'm like, what in the hell did I just? It was awful. Yeah, it was terrible. I looked dead.
I've done that several times. I,
Yeah.
I think I've done that several times where I was rushing and I was wearing a black t-shirt and I had a black background. And the way I
Yes, you
light
did.
it, I just looked like Zombie in a box.
Well, it was that Beatles cover. We just saw your head that whole night. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, yeah, it was disconcerting to say the
Yes.
least.
No, so that's helpful.
So make sure that you're well and adequately lit. Do you need a professional lighting package to do that? No, you don't. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 incandescent lights that are part of the ceiling fan that's about 10 feet above my head. That's it. That's the only light.
Yeah.
And that is more than adequate for this application.
Absolutely.
One really important thing is that make sure that the camera on whatever device you're using is at or slightly above your eye level. Now, right now, the camera is it's a couple of inches below my eye level, so it is not optimal. But I'm going to take a second here. I'm going to risk disaster by lifting it above my eye level. Okay. So that's I'm holding about 75 pounds out with straight arms. I hope you appreciate it.
That's your
So now
workout
it's
for the
slightly
day.
above my eye level, and that's a better look for me. Because, all right, if you look at my chin right now, everything looks good. But when it's at eye level or slightly below eye level, as it is right now, hang on, get this right. You get to see that I have some of this going on.
Yeah.
It's not too bad. It's not too egregious because it falls in shadow, but you can definitely see it. And boy, I like looking like this
Yes.
better than I like looking like this. The other thing that we see, I'm just going to wreck everything right here. The other thing we see right is people going, okay, so for the last quarterly report, what are you doing to me? Okay, you see,
Yeah.
you've got the shot up the nose thing going on. No, no, look how terrible this looks. I've got the same lighting, I've got the same background, and yes, I am in front of the patio doors in my master bedroom. But
Yeah.
if you can see the ceiling in your own shot, you're doing it wrong.
Yes. And if you're watching this asking, why are they talking about this? Because it's been 2 years. Because we continually see people doing this. Please, we want to give you the best opportunity to succeed online. These may seem like little points, but these little points add up to be big problems if we're not careful.
And you always want to make sure that your eyes are somewhere near the 1/3 line down of the frame.
Yeah.
That is just basic framing. That's what you see in Hollywood. In a Hollywood close-up, their eyes will be, let me get in the exact position.
Yeah.
Their eyes will be right at about the 1/3 level down from the top of the frame. Always leave a little bit of room above your head. Michael's shot looks really good. Mine looks pretty good now. My eyes are not at that correct 1/3 mark, but it's because I have the camera set a little lower than I normally would. But what I'm doing right now is I would put it in the realm of acceptable, but not exceptional. Here, let me see if I can get it to exceptional.
While you're doing that, we do have a question from Mitra too before we close out.
All right, hang on, let me get this.
The key here, experiment with your lights, with your camera angles. If you are in a room with a window and it depends on the time of day, that can change how your lighting affects how you look too.
Yeah, there we go. Now, I like this shot really well now. The camera's up slightly above my eye level, so I'm going to go right from the lens to my eyes. So you see it comes down just a little bit, slightly above my eye level. My head is framed well within the shot. There's a little bit of headroom above my head, which is good. You want that. You don't want the top of your head cut off. But by the same token, this is the biggest sin in the world. If somebody sees a shot that looks like this, where your head is tiny and is down, way down in the frame, it automatically screams, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yes.
And if you don't know what you're doing with something this simple, how can they trust you to know what you're doing with their business?
Wow, very good question. All right, speaking of questions, here's Mitra's.
Am I sounding really harsh here? I'm just laying down a bunch of.
You're keeping it real. All right, we're past the point of sugarcoating everything. We got to get real, because this is the great differentiator. This reset of our world the last 2 years has been an incredible opportunity, but you got to look like you're professional and know what you're doing. All right, here's Mitra's question.
Oh, wait, and one more thing. Let me toss in one more thing before the question. What I'm doing right now appears to you as though I am completely disinterested in you and everything you have to say. Even though what I'm doing right now is I'm looking right at Michael Davis on my screen.
Yeah.
But it looks like I'm looking out the window and counting birds.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
whenever you're online, once you've got your shot set up, look directly into the lens the entire time. Unless there's, a graphic that you specifically need to see and address, then look at it, talk about it, but then go right back to the thing. You don't need to know how good you look. You don't need to know how they look. Look right into the camera, as you would if they were sitting right across from you. You'd be looking them in the eyes. You wouldn't be talking to them like this, going, I can change your business and make you a multi-million-dollar corporation within 3 days. Ask me how. You wouldn't do that in person. Don't do it to them online. And what you can do is you can get a little Post-it note and post it right next to wherever your lens is, with a little arrow pointing right to the lens to remind you to look into the lens.
Hey, that's what I did the first few months. I kept having that issue, and I said, all right, we're going to solve this problem right now.
Right.
And this is why I brought up hybrid to you. I went to a hybrid meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I was sitting to the side, and I noticed it was a rectangular. Tables had put together in a rectangle. There was a camera in the middle of that table. The speakers were looking at the individuals in the room, and then I noticed they'd be doing this. At the back side of the room was the monitor showing the gallery, and I just sat back and watched, and I thought, oh, Houston, we've got a problem.
Yeah, it's hard to get over, the impulse to see yourself on TV.
Or to look at the people in the back of the room too. You want to include them, but I'm not including you because I'm thinking about my perspective, not yours.
Yeah, I mean, think about watch late night talk shows. The host comes out and he does the monologue, and occasionally he'll look up and acknowledge the audience, or he'll look over and acknowledge the band. But for the most part, even though he's got a room of 500 or 600 people, he's looking into the camera and talking to us. Talk to the camera as though it were your best friend.
I think I'm going to get a band and include them on these weekly calls. Just right over there, talk to the guys. Tommy and I can have a conversation. They can play some music. And I think that's what we're going to do. This is going to become an entertainment show. All right. Here's Mitra's question. A little bit long, but it's a good question. Do you write out your keynote word by word and memorize it, and that's how you deliver it? Or do you write an outline, practice it, and then deliver a keynote that may be slightly different from time to time? Her concern is memorizing would have to deliver it word for word and don't have flexibility, and it sounds robotic.
Mm-hmm. That's because you haven't rehearsed it enough. It's because you haven't done it 100 times. I write out every word. I write out every word. I write out every pause, every inflection. I write it all out. And once I have it internalized, again, to that point, and for me, the litmus test is, can I do it hyper fast? Or can I wake up out of a sound sleep and start delivering that presentation, that keynote? Once you have it so deeply in your bones, then you're free to use it as an outline. You're free to go into your presentation, your keynote, and then if something comes up or if there's something you've heard from the audience during the day that may affect the information that you're going to give through your keynote, then you can say, and while I'm on this subject, this afternoon I heard from a bunch of people that the electronic trucks are freezing in minus 27-degree weather. And here's what I think about that. And you can talk about that. And then you can go right back into your prepared script. Or if you get interrupted with a question in the middle of your keynote, excuse me, I have a question. You're flexible. That hyper preparedness gives you the flexibility to then begin to add interpretation. A pianist who's playing a concerto, all right? The first thing they do is they memorize all the notes, and they put all the notes in their fingers so that their fingers can play all the notes in the correct order perfectly. Then they start adding their own personal coloration and their own interpretation to the piece and making it uniquely theirs. So I am 100% all about being completely memorized. And yes, you can do it from an outline. That's completely, that's valid. But what I find when you're doing it from an outline is you make your main point, and then the next thing I want to talk about is creameries. Wisconsin creameries are part of our nation's breadbasket. They produce over 1 million gallons of cream per day. You get those little pauses where you have to go and check with your notes and make sure what you say is about to correct is what you're about to say is correct. That tells the audience that you didn't give a crap about this presentation and you're just reading it off a page.
Well, let's address this issue of robotic, and I'll give you my thought, and then I want to hear yours. This robotic issue is valid. And I think what happens is between maybe 25 and 75, we're stuck in the robotic zone because we're still trying to think about what we're saying. And when we're thinking, we're not coming from our heart. There will come a day when you've done it 98, 99, 100, where, oh, I didn't have to think about it. And the robot falls away. And now you're more present and you're real. It's you, Kevin.
Yeah, robotic is because you don't have it internalized well enough. People mistake that and call it over-rehearsed. It's under-rehearsed. If you can speak these words and let them flow out of you naturally, then you have the freedom to let those words affect you differently depending on your situation, depending on your day, depending on what's going on in the world. Those words then can move you differently in different emotional ways. And that's where you get the freedom to experience the joy of your own words.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kevin, as always, I appreciate your wisdom and brilliance. I pick up something every time we interact, and I know that that's going to happen next time we do improv, and the next time we're together at Game Changers next month. So I appreciate you getting up early for us today to be
Holy
on
cow!
This call.
It's almost 2:00.
It's crazy. I mean,
I know. It's nuts.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to get a hold of you for some delivery insights or work, get Kevin Burke at gmail.com. I'll put this below the video when I post it. Any final thoughts or ideas for our viewers?
Yeah, we've kind of gotten deeply into the whole preparedness thing. It's not a chore. It's a joy. Oh, there's a difference between, oh my gosh, I get to practice this 100 times before I go stand up in front of people who are paying me to say these words. This is awesome. If you look at that way, instead of, oh, that mean jerk in the Maui ball cap said I had to do this 100 times. You're robbing yourself of the own joy of your own joy of the fun part of doing this work.
Well, I love that you said that, because that was a mindset shift for me too. And I realized I get to explore this material. And when you get feedback and people give you new ideas, it's an exploration. And I tell people all the time now, speaking and storytelling is an evolutionary process. The version you start with, yes, you're going to internalize it, memorize the words. But once it's internalized, you now have the freedom to really evolve this thing. Right? Even your caveman, you didn't do it the exact same way every time, but in the beginning you did, right?
Yeah.
Until you
Yeah.
got nuanced with it.
Yeah, in the beginning, until in the beginning of performances, I
Correct.
performed
Yeah,
it,
correct.
the same way each time. It's a one-person play, so bear in mind that if I, do anything differently, I'm not throwing anybody else off. Yes, I did it exactly the same way for about the first 100 performances. And then once I was comfortable in the performances, I let the emotions of the words move me to different places. There's one scene where it's a play about relationships and how men and women communicate differently and how that causes us to misunderstand each other. For example, if a woman says, I'll call you, she means when she gets home. Right? If a guy says, I'll call you, he means before he dies. And we explained why that is. And there was a scene in the play where my wife wants to cuddle in bed, but being a man, I'm the kind of person, here's the line, do not cross, but she wants to cuddle. And of course, when she wants to cuddle, there's going to be an uncontrollable physiological reaction that makes me want to not sleep anymore. So needing that space. But she misinterpreted it and said, don't you love me? And then my line is, of course I love you. I'm crazy about you. Now get away. Now get away. Didn't get a laugh the first 100 times I did it. But one night, as I was saying to her, of course I love you. I'm crazy about you. I was filled with a deep sense of regret that I was now going to have to tell her to scooch. And when I added that deep sense of regret, the audience laughed like crazy. And I didn't play it correctly just now. I didn't do it right. Because I haven't done it for 5 years.
Sure.
But once I added that coloration to it, it was one of the biggest laughs in the show. Now, your next question is, so how do I create a magic moment and recreate it every single time? What I did was I realized, oh, this is a really profound moment of regret for him. So what I had to do is when I say the line, now get away, I had to think about something which I deeply regret, deep and profound regret. Nobody got hurt, nobody got damaged because of the incident, but I deeply regret it. And when I bring that memory up as I say the line, now get away, it infuses it with emotion and real human connection. And the audience felt that, and then they laughed like crazy. Yeah. But I never would have been able to discover that moment had I not rehearsed it 100 times before, and then probably 40 times in rehearsal, and then 100 performances before I got to the point where I could allow the words to affect me like that and surprise me, allow the words to surprise me. When your own words can surprise you, then you know you've rehearsed it enough.
There you go. Fabulous wisdom. We're going to leave everybody on that. Quick reminder, if you're watching, even on recording, if you would like to do a deeper dive into storytelling, don't forget our 52 Storytelling Insights. This is a weekly 5-minute lesson that comes right to your email inbox. It's an audio. Oh, and there's an alarm. Hold on. We don't want that to interrupt us. Oh, it's speech practice, right? Because it's number 27. You'll appreciate that, Kevin.
There you go.
But yeah, you get a weekly 5-minute audio with this, with the Storytelling Insights. It comes right to your email inbox. If you want to register for that, go to my virtual business card. It looks like a cell phone. It's a virtual business card. It's infone.co/speaking CPR. It's not iPhone and it's not .com. They couldn't have made it more difficult. But it's a wonderful tool. infone.co/speaking CPR. If you'd like more information about that too, just let me know in the comments box below the video. Go to 52 Story Insights. You can sign up for it there. Coming soon. I'm not sure. I had somebody who was supposed to be with me next week. She has to go out of town. We'll figure it out, but I will promote that next week. Kevin Burke, you're awesome. Always love talking with you. Look forward to doing improv with you next week. Game Changers with Stage Time University. Have a great weekend. You might want to go back and take a nap because you got up so early today.
Yeah, I still owe myself about 3 hours sleep right now. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Get out there and give those presentations that open people's hearts and open people's minds.
How many times?
100.
100. All right.
100 times.
All right. We'll see you. Have a great weekend, my friend. See you.